Hey, so this is the Module 3 video. I chose to make a database with SQLite through Python. So the two main files we're going to look at are the database program.py file and the magic.db file. This one is not viewable and you don't touch it. This is the program does. So the first thing we're going to do is import the SQL3 Lite library, and then we're going to open up a um, a connection, and we just do SQLite.connection and then the name of the database. So if the database does not exist, this will create a new file with that name. If it does and it's in the current directory, or if you path it to the right directory, then it will also show up. Then you make a new cursor from that. The cursor basically acts as a mouse and keyboard inside of the program, and you access through it like that. So this program uses a lot of functions. I will try and briefly cover all of them. So the first one is just create database. So this is just my cursor.execute, and then in parentheses and in quotes you have your SQL syntax. And so this is going to be a common theme you see in almost every function. So this function creates the table if it doesn't exist, as that for all these. And these are just the column names. This will do the different color pips, and this will do the abilities for it, and then this will declare the IDs as well. I notice now that I don't have the ID for this table, but this table isn't used too much. So that's just what create database does. So the first thing we do right after that is we call it, and then we set the loop status for the loop down here to true. And then the first thing we'll have is this clear inventory function. What this does is this executes the drop for each of these, and then it recommits, and then it recreates them, and then it commits them to the database. I need to learn more about what commit does. Commit sometimes will, I think it saves changes, although some parts in the program where I call create database, it doesn't really seem to have a big use, but either way, it's kind of in there, something that I should probably do more research on. The next one is filter input. There's probably an easier way to do this. I just kind of threw this together. It just says where the menu range is equal to 1 through 8 as strings because I was lazy and when I was making this I forgot to use Python, so I forgot to convert the input to an int. And this just returns the set, and so you can, when you use your type, so the main menu only has items 1 through 8. So if you type in 9, it's like, hey, this is outside of the range. This is the auto-populate function. This is used when you first boot up the program or when you want to completely reset it. Oh, well, after you completely reset it. So the first thing it executes is a bunch of insert statements and inserts 3 cards into the table. And after that, it'll insert the tokens, and then it'll insert the link table. And these are just the values. The main thing you want to look at is insert into, and then this has ID, name, types, conversion cost, all these different things. Inside of here, we have the add Bannock calculator. This takes in the color integer and the color. And the first thing we'll do is generate a false string. So basically what this will return is I'll give it a color, and then I'll give it the color symbol. That's either a W, a G, a blue, a U, or an R, and then I'll give it the color, and this will basically add that many symbols together. So if I give it 4 and G, it'll give me 4 G's back. And this does it by first sees its colors because colors does not have a color, and so it just returns a number. And then it generates a range for that integer, and then adds one of the symbol. It concats one of the symbol to it, and then it will return that. This is used a couple times. The next one is the calculator. This basically adds everything from this function together. So you'll have white, blue, it'll combine that together, and then it'll also return that as a string. This is the retrieve database function. So this isn't just a select all. So the first thing you do is select everything, and then you'll print out a line, and then it'll run. So this runs on each row in the selected query. So we're going to select everything from card table. This means that we're going to retrieve all of the cards. And then right after that, we're going to pass in the parameters for the cost and the calculator, and then you've already seen how that works. And then that'll generate the cost, then we'll get the name. And so this row is, I think it's a tuple, or a tuple is the data type. And each of these values correspond to where the value is from the SQL insert statement. And so that'll just print it off. I think the default amount is 3, so this will print off 3 times. This is retrieve database med. These next couple statements are a little confusing, but I'll try and explain them. So the first thing we do is set a false ID to 0. So a good database practice is never assume that your hold on, let me make sure it's still recording. is to never assume that your IDs are set in stone. So if I have three items, I should not assume that there's 1, 2, 3. That could be 3, 2, 1, or that could be 10, 15, and 8 billion. So what I do with this is I generate a false ID for each one. So if I'm going to show three items, I'm going to say, okay, the first item has a false ID of 1, the second one has a false ID of 2, and so on. And so this just displays that, and that's kind of all it does. It'll make sense in a second. So the next one we have is retrieve dbmed return. So this has a false ID and a real ID. They're currently set to 0. So say for row in, so this basically um, this will select everything and then add 1 to the false ID, and then you pass the user choice into this. So basically this generates the list. This says, okay, I have false ID 1, 2, and 3. Say I want to do 3. This will look through the list, find the quote-unquote false ID third item, and then as it selects it, it'll find the right ID, and it will assign it to that. And then it'll return that, and that's what that function does. And then I have an else thing where if it doesn't work, it will select this and say you've broken the program. This shouldn't be possible unless you have negative values or 0 values as an ID, which you probably shouldn't have. This is the add card entry. So the first thing we want to do is select the count. Then we will fetch what the count is and assign it to a number. And then we're going to add 1 to it. So what this is saying is that I'm going to assume that if I have three items, the next item that I want to add will have an ID of 4. So it does this, and then it starts a new loop, and it says I'm going to select an ID from where ID equals the new ID. So this would be item 4 in that example. And so if it is empty, then the key is failed. That means there's already a key of 4, so I'm going to add 1 to it, and then re-go through the loop. If 5 doesn't work again, then it'll keep going until it finds something. There is probably a more effective way of doing this, but I think this is a pretty foolproof way of not getting duplicate IDs in the database. Um, and then this is just all the input for asking the user what they want. This only differentiates between strings and integers. It doesn't differentiate anything else, and there's no other data types. And this executes the insert into. For a while this wasn't working. There was an extra question mark, and I kept miscounting it. And so these are the types. Didn't just love that syntax right there, a billion question marks. And so this will add this into the card table, and it will commit it. And that's basically what this one does. Let's check out the next one. This is false display. So this is what will display a false item, and then let me just do that real quick. So retrieve db, that's going to print off a list of false items with false IDs. This will select the count, and then while this is true to the user input, the user will enter what false ID they want. So 3 items, I want item 2. So this is going to retrieve it to entry input, and then if it is larger than the table extent or it's less than 0, so false IDs are only going to correspond to the amount of items in the database, cannot exceed, then it says, then it redirects them until they get it correct. And then I'll throw this in here, and then I'll retrieve the true ID based on the false ID, and then this statement will just return the true ID. There is probably a simpler way to do this, but this is kind of how it turned out. This is the delete entry one. So this basically you go through the same process again. Retrieve the true ID from false display, and then this will shortly display the car name. And they'll say, "Are you sure you want to delete this?" And then if it's 1, then you do this. If it's 2, then it doesn't do anything, and it just commits changes. There's no changes, and just basically breaks the function. In a good way, it doesn't break the program. And so this will say delete card where ID equals this, and that's from the true ID, which is translated from the false ID. And then afterwards, it selects it and checks to see if it's deleted. If it's deleted, it selects deleted. If it's not, I don't know how that would happen. It says deletion failed. Try it again. And then edit entry. This one I had the most trouble with, and this one was such a pain in the butt to do. Yeah, you can use that bowl. Yeah. I don't care if you guys talk to me. Like, the TA is going to grade this video. I literally do not care. You guys can be loud in the background. I don't care about this that much. So this will, again, retrieve the true ID from the false ID. I don't. I think the TA is chill for this class. Like, there's not a professionalism score for it. I mean, I'm explaining my project. This is probably the project I did the best on. So this will select this, and then it will find the selected row where the ID equals this. So say I want to edit item 2, but it has a ID of something weird. It'll fetch that, and then it says, And this just gives a message. So originally I wanted the user to be able to edit any item aside from primary IDs because you do not want to edit primary IDs or primary keys. And so as of now, all they can edit is the card name, the type, or the subtypes, and that is these different rows. And so this makes sure that the user's choice is correct, and then um, this will basically this assigns. So if they have one, that changes the card type. Two changes the subtype, and so on. So what would you like to change the card selected value to? So what I want to do is the first thing I'll do is I set a temporary string to the selected value. So this was originally a statement that just had both of these items passed in as no, all three of these items passed in as parameters. However, this would not work because the selected value is being passed in as a tuple, and not a number. So I had this is something that chat helped me a lot with. So I passed this in, and this extracts the selected value into an integer as a string, and then I pass these items in. And it's funny because these question marks actually stay as question marks if you print this off. They are not they're not changed because those are only wildcards in SQL. In Python, they are not wildcards. And this just commits the changes. This is the join display. This one's also kind of a pain in the butt to do, but it's still pretty fun. So originally I wanted this to be a little bit more elaborate, but I did not. So this has no user interaction. This basically just runs, and you can see the code from here. This assumes the database in its default state. If you've deleted or changed any of the main items, it doesn't quite work right, and so it just says go back and run options 6 and 7 again. So it just asks you if you need to go back. And so the first thing we do is execute query, select from the card table the card name, and from the token table the token name. And then we're going to select these from link table, which doesn't make sense because how do you select name and token from somewhere where there is not a name and token? And then we're going to join card table and link table together based on the card table ID and the card ID that is saved inside of link table, and then we'll do the exact same thing with token table but based on those IDs. And then this will just fetch the results from the cursor into a queryable result, and let's say for each row print off card connected to token, and I'll show that in action. And then this is just the menu, nothing crazy here, just prints off a buttload of numbers, asks them what they want to do, and then this will just say if this happens, and then it will call the appropriate ones. This just breaks the loop. Now let's see this bad boy in action. So I'm gonna, oh, not run debug. So I will run this. So the first thing I do is I'm going to drop all tables, and then I'm going to display the current database. And there's nothing in the database, as you can see. So let's run populate database with test inserts, debugging only. Don't use this option. So I've reset it. Looks like it's successfully done it. So let's hit display. Wow, so look at all this. We have this dude, and this dude. Awesome. So now let's go through. Let's do one, add a new card to the database. I need to take that down. What's your card's name? So my card name will be Bobby. Let me just type in some random stuff. And then, so this is numbers only, so I'll do that. No, nothing. Usually you put a link here, but I don't know. I'm just typing random stuff. Okay, and now it redisplays, and we can see our Bobby is in there. So let's edit a card. Say I did not like how Bobby was turning out. Let's find the false ID for Bobby. Bobby's false ID is 4. Do I want to change his... You know what? I want to change Bobby's card type to... and then let's display that real quick. And we can see it has changed. Awesome. And the 5th, and then 4. Let's say I want to delete Bobby. So I'll put in Bobby's false ID. I should want to delete Bobby. Yes, I want to kill him. And boom, he's deleted. And if I rerun this, he is gone. Now let's run 6, which, oh wait, no, not 6. Choose a card and display its tokens. Demonstrate the join. I'm going to hit that. So this line connects single card. This is just going to say make sure database in its default state. I have removed an item that I imported, so it should be fine. I do not need to go back. So it's going to say this guy's connected to a treasure, this guy's connected to that one, and this guy's connected to that one. And yeah, that is about it. For the syntax I learned from this project, I knew a lot about Python and SQL. I never connected them before, and connecting them with those wildcards and formatting different different variables into strings and then passing those strings into another built-in function. That was what I really learned, and honestly, I learned a lot more from this project than I thought I would, and I think it'll definitely help me in my career, especially if I do end up going into some sort of database administration, and which is kind of what I'm planning on doing. But yeah, so this is a solid project, and I'm really glad I chose it.